I don't really know how to start this, but we made it. Episode 8, Just Being We, the podcast that's not really a podcast, but somehow it works. And we're just here having a conversation. You guys have kind of become my best friends and almost like my therapists in a way, because I'm just sitting here talking and just expressing everything that I want to get off my chest, and hoping that it resonates with some people, because that's always been my number one goal, is to always be able to help other people through things that I've experienced, because I know that other people experience them too, and it's difficult when you feel alone in something, but when you find a whole community who is just like you, it makes you feel like you. And so this podcast, it represents something so much more than just a podcast of me talking and expressing things and posting and all of that. It also represents me sticking to something that I said I was going to do. Because I have a really bad habit of saying I'm going to do things, but then I procrastinate on, and then I just never get them done. And I know I can. It's just all a mental block, and I don't believe in myself fully enough to be able to see through it. And so this signifies that sort of consistency and that inspiration that I know that I have inside of me, that I just need to spill out and stop judging myself before other people can judge me for it. Because again, you'll attract the energy that you want to get. And I'm very grateful for the community that this has built, and hopefully with it being out there, it can continue to inspire other people to speak up and share their own stories, and to just be who they are unapologetically. And I wanted this episode to have a different vibe, not only the look or the angle of the camera, but just in how I speak. And I don't have anything planned for today. I haven't spoke upon this in quite a while, so I don't know how I'll react or how it's going to go, but I just want to speak directly from my heart and from my experience and share it, because you never know, it could help somebody who is going through the same thing, or who has gone through it and just didn't know how to express it. And yeah, it's a deep topic, but it's something that I feel like shouldn't be taboo. It shouldn't be forbidden to speak upon. And I feel like the safest way for me to feel comfortable enough to share it with people is doing it, again, on my own time, in my own way. And I felt the best way to do that was with people that I feel safe around, which is my community, who follows me and who supports me, and whoever's listening right now. Thank you for allowing me to share this. So without further ado, let's get to it. So I'm not really quite sure where I wanted to begin this story, but I think the easiest way for me to kind of ease myself and everyone listening into this is just to begin at where I thought things started to change, even if I didn't realize it at the time. And that was 2019, New Year's. And just like any normal or normal-ish human being, I decided to make a New Year's resolution. And normally, New Year's resolutions, they don't stick. They're like, you stick with them for the first week, and then you fall off and just forget about them. And you're like, oh, I'll try next year. So my New Year's resolution that year was I just wanted to learn how to eat healthier. And I was already eating quite healthy, especially for the amount of activity that I was doing, and how many hours of dance I was doing a week and how much I was working. I was eating pretty healthy for what my body needed and nourishing it. But I just wanted to eat healthier because I was eating a lot more processed things rather than whole foods. So I started off that year just really learning more about how to eat healthier, how to cook. That's when I really got into making my own food, not eating out so much and just making it at home, looking up easy, healthy recipes, all of the fun little things. And it got me excited because I was taking care of my body, but I was also learning new things, like new recipes on how to cook and everything. And it started off as this innocent little New Year's resolution. And it wasn't like I wanted to change the way I look or I didn't like my body. I don't think I had too much of that. There were times where I had little bits of moments where I wanted to look a certain way, but it wasn't to an extent where I was forcing myself to change the way I looked. Again, it was more just I wanted to feel better from the inside out, just to help me with my dancing, to help me just in life. And it got me really excited, and I stuck with it. And I think that was something that I grasped onto, was sticking to something and being consistent with it. And I remember the first 2 months, I was still eating like I was, but I was trying new things and I was trying new recipes and eating healthier and everything. But I wasn't restricting of any sort or cutting out any certain food groups for the first couple months. And then around March, April that year came, and in a month time span, I ended up losing 20 pounds that I didn't have to lose. And it's hard to look back at that time, because although I seemed happy and everything was well, I really wasn't. And I think I was blinded by how I felt. And to me, I didn't look at myself the way other people were looking at myself. I just felt like, oh, I feel lighter and I feel good and I'm eating good. And within that month span is where things kind of turned and changed for not the better. And without me realizing it, I ended up cutting out majority of the carbs, majority of fats, dairy, anything except for little portion sizes. And I ate the same thing every day. And I don't want to say what that is because it's very triggering, not only to me, but to anybody who has or is struggling with an eating disorder. But all I know is that I was very particular in how much I ate and what I ate. And I only ate probably 5 foods, the same 5 foods every single day. And I didn't add anything extra or anything. And with the amount of calories that I was burning through the physical activities that I was doing, it started to eat through my muscle and ate up anything it could, because any of my healthy body weight that I had on me was already gone. And it started to attack the muscle that was there. And I did not see myself in that way. I thought everything was fine. But I remember a turning point where people started to comment on my videos saying, she's losing weight, she looks unhealthy, and bringing up concerns. And most of it was not in a harmful way. It was more of a concerning aspect on my behalf. And I remember my parents telling me that people were messaging them and just saying, hey, I don't know what's going on, but I hope Kaycee's okay. And my parents started to notice certain behavior aspects of mine that were changing. And I started to get really tired and really moody and fearful of food, which I never thought I would. And it creeped up on me like anything I had never imagined I would experience. And I can vividly remember a time before I was going to a class and my parents came up to me because before I went to class, I wouldn't eat. And when I came back from class, I wouldn't eat. So I was burning calories that I didn't even have inside of me, and I wasn't replenishing myself. And that's when the dramatic loss of weight came. And I remember my parents saying, hey, can you eat just a little something before you go? And I kept fighting it. And I think that was the first time that I had to take a step back and face what was actually happening, because I was in denial. I was in denial for the longest time. And I think even after that, I was still in denial. But I remember them offering up a bowl of oatmeal. And I physically was disgusted by it and wouldn't eat it. But I wasn't able to go to class unless I did eat it. So I remember I had that bowl of oatmeal. I hadn't had anything like that in a while. So when I went to class, I ended up having this massive stomach ache. And that was my body's way of saying, hey, you need this because we don't know how to digest it anymore. And from there, it just progressively got worse because I was constantly working. And at that time, I just wasn't in the greatest place mentally. But again, I was in denial, so I wasn't able to face that directly. And I think at the time, there was so much happening in my life on the outside that was out of my control. And the one thing that I could control was food. And I think that's so important to recognize, and it's one of the most important signs to recognize, is this being a controlling aspect of your life. Because for me, again, in the beginning, it wasn't like, I want to lose weight, I want to change my body. It was just, I want to eat healthier. And something so innocent turned into something so nasty and controlling of my life, and I didn't realize it. But because I was losing, whether it was the people that I cared and had in my circle, friends or connections, and I truly felt alone, and all of these things started to gain out of my control, and I didn't have time to breathe and to process and to live my life. And I felt the one thing I could control was what I was eating, because if I can control that, then I would feel good to do my work. And when I look back at any type of photo, video class from that year, I can physically see the change in my body, in my face, my eyes being sunken in. I look tired, and I look almost soulless in a way, where I lost who I was, but I was still trying to be who I was for other people. And it was a really hard thing for me to face, being in the public eye, and especially at that time, it was so significant. And taking classes every day, every week, and being on camera and being viewed by people, and being a dancer where your body is your vessel and it's going to be judged whether you like it or not. It was terrifying for me to go to these classes or to go and film myself, because at the time I wasn't doing well. And so there were a few months after that, during the summer of 2019, where I had the most difficult struggle of my life, trying to find a better relationship with food. And in the beginning, it was extremely tough for me. And there would be days where I would scream because I didn't want to eat something, or cry because I felt bloated and disgusted by myself. And I don't think that there was one day that went by that I didn't cry. I think that entire year I cried every single day, and that's not even an exaggeration, and it's not a oh, feel sorry for me moment. It was just, there was not a day that went by that I didn't cry, because I was so humiliated and just terrified and just everything overflowing all at once. But the hardest part for me was the fact that I was doing it alone and nobody knew what was going on, and not even my closest friends or mentors. The only people who really knew was my family, because they were the ones who were concerned first and wanted me to get help and wanted me to get better and wanted me to be healthy and strong. And I owe it all to them for my recovery and helping me through that, because I was not myself, and I was not the greatest person to them either. And I wasn't me. And letting go of that control was difficult too. In the beginning, when I started to try and reintroduce the food groups that I had so significantly cut out before, I still was very minimal about it. And I ended up still losing weight that wasn't there. And overall, I lost probably 30 pounds and was becoming a ghost of myself. My skin started to become pale, and all of these other health risks started popping up that I didn't realize would be the after effect of it. And that was the most concerning part. And I ended up going to the doctors and getting checked out. And what they had said was more, my case was orthorexia, which is eating healthy, eating extremely healthy, which means you're completely cutting out anything unnecessary or extra or substantial. And So I was on the brink of anorexia, and it was terrifying to hear that. And I knew I had to get better. I wanted to get better. It was just difficult for me mentally to go through that, because in my mind, I knew I had to put weight back on. But doing that in the public eye, when no one knows what you're going through, the fear of what people would say about my body, about how it was changing. And at the time, I was 16. And that is the age where, especially being a young female, your body is changing. And people are going to judge it. And again, it was just the fact that no one really knew. And that's where the mental side started to kick in for me. And I became extremely depressed, extremely alone, and fearful. And it wasn't until that summer when I started to slowly open up to a few of my close friends and let them know what was happening. And I'm so grateful to have been able to open up to them, because they also helped me. And it was a slow process. And I would say the rest of that year was very difficult for me to find that balance. And I didn't know where my hunger cues were. And so there would be days where I would eat too much and feel extremely bloated, and then I would yo-yo back and forth, up and down. Then I would go travel somewhere, and I know this at the moment now, but I would intentionally not eat something because I knew I ate more the other day. And it was this constant battle of me trying to fight my own self for that control. And I just had to let go of it in order to get better. And that's where I started to pick up more strength and fitness, because I had lost all my muscle, that I wanted to gain it back, and I wanted to gain it in a healthier way. But with doing that, with working out even more than what I was doing, I had to eat even more because I was burning that muscle. And at the time when I look back at myself in that time period, I'm like, I can see myself slowly gaining life back into me. My face, my body, my muscle. I was still severely underweight, but I could start to see that life, that color go back into me. But at the time, I thought I was so heavy, and the body dysmorphia is such a real thing. Because even nowadays, I'll look at myself in some photos where I know I felt weird or uncomfortable in my skin that day, and then I look back at them and I'm like, why? Because I look absolutely fine. I look incredibly strong and beautiful, but I just didn't feel it. And that's how I feel when I look back at when I was gaining back my life. At the time, I was fearful of it, and I thought I was gaining too much too fast. But in reality, it was the healthy weight I was putting back on that I had lost. And that carried into 2020. And beginning of 2020 started off extremely rough for me. I was still dealing with trying to find my balance with food, with trying to be healthy and still having that orthorexia in the back of my mind. And then March hit and I fractured my ankle. And then COVID hit and we were all stuck inside for months. And I had broken my ankle the week before COVID, literally the week before lockdown. And in that time, I was not strong enough mentally to be okay. That took me out of being able to do physical activity. And so I had a very unhealthy relationship with food in that moment too, because I felt like if I was eating something, I wasn't going to be able to necessarily burn it off or work it off or gain strength from it. I just had to sit there. And it was extremely tough because I wasn't around my friends. I wasn't around other people besides my family, who I love so much. But it's different when you're able to be around other people who can help you just have fun and do normal life things. But I was stuck with myself inside as everyone else was. Cut to a couple months later, I had this life-changing Zoom call with some people that I love and adore and respect so much. And that was the first time that I had opened up about my eating disorder to them. And I ended up bawling my eyes out and crying, but it was terrifying and I had so much anxiety. I remember pacing the floor back and forth before I had that call because I had never confronted myself like that or opened up in such a vulnerable light to these people, and they welcomed my story and it opened up another side of myself to them, and it actually grew me closer to them. And it was truly a life-changing point in my life where it inspired me to be more vulnerable in a different way and open up to people, because good came out of that. And it was such an important lesson for me to learn, was it's okay to share the human sides of yourself with the people that you care about most, because they are the ones who are going to be the most understanding, even if they don't know it because they didn't physically go through it. They will understand and they will be there for you. And it brings this weight off of your shoulder that you feel like you're not alone in it. And that was the first time I felt like I wasn't alone, and I was able to shift the narrative and take back my control in a different way. Cut to a few months later, I started to begin to kind of dance a little bit more. And I did this one video. I attempted to do this one video. And it was to Savage remix when TikTok was going viral and all of that. I did a choreography when the Beyonce remix came out. And I did a video in my parents' backyard, a little short dance video, and I posted it. And on YouTube, there was, you know the saying where there could be a million positive comments, but it's the one negative comment that strikes you? This was that moment. There was one negative comment, and it pointed out my biggest fear and my worst insecurity. And it said, "Dang, Kaycee's getting fat." And I broke down. I'm even getting emotional, like, thinking about that moment, because I remember how how struck I was by that, because it solidified any sort of insignificance that I felt in myself, and it made every insecurity that I thought about myself feel real. And although I knew it wasn't, I felt like it was, because I was the one who was telling myself that. And I ended up, that day, I was super upset. And I was crying, and my mom turned to me and was like, go in your room, get your camera, and just record yourself and talk. Say what's on your mind. You don't have to post. This is not for posting reasons. This is just for you to have your own therapy session, to get things off of your chest, and just to let it out. So I went in my room, and I put my camera on my tripod. My face is puffy, red, I'm sniffling, and I started talking to the camera. And I still have that video on my computer to this day. I have not watched it because it's too hard for me to go back and see myself like that. One of these days I'm gonna go back and watch it, but I remember I just was so hurt by it. But talking about it gave me this sense of release, and I didn't bottle it up inside. And it felt nice just to talk, even if no one was going to hear it. And I think ever since that point, it kind of carried through that entire year. And it carried through 2020, 2021, and even points of 2022 to this day. And I think my overall thing is something like an eating disorder or any sort of disorder or anything that you go through, it doesn't ever quite leave you. There's ways to learn how to cope with it and live with it and know that you can't ignore it. And I think in my situation, I ignored it for so long, and I was in denial for so long that it took me very long to accept myself again and to find myself again. And when I talked about mental health, and when I talked about you never know what someone's going through, and I kind of dropped hints here and there but never really specifically said what I was going through, that was just my way of saying, hey, I'm going through something right now, and I don't feel like myself, but I want you guys to know that it's okay to not be okay. And it's the most cliche line ever, but it's the most truthful and honest quote of life. And I think what's really changed with me now is, like I said, I was still going through it majority of 2021, probably half of 2022. But I think there was just this shift in mindset where I still have terrible days where I don't feel good about my body, or I feel like I didn't eat good, or I just don't like the way I look or feel, or the clothes that I used to wear don't fit. I still have clothes that I wore when I was 16, and I'm like, I want to just cleanse my entire closet because I'm not 16 anymore. And that's something that I've had to just accept, is like, I'm never going to be 16 again. I'm never going to have that body. I'm never going to be that small again. I'm even taller than I was then. Not by much, but I'm just never going to be that 16-year-old self anymore. And that is completely fine. I am a woman. I am allowed to gain weight. I am allowed to lose weight. I am allowed to be confident in my skin in every stage. And that is something that I've switched my mindset to, is even if I'm feeling bad about my body one day, or most days in this case, my mindset now It's not like I need to change myself, I need to work out, I need to do this, which is something that I fell victim to. And still sometimes I'll go back into that pattern, but it's a habit that I'm trying to break. But my mindset now is just to accept my body in the state that it's in every state that it's in, because it's meant to be that way in that moment. Your body is constantly changing. It's never going to be the same. Every single day it's different, especially for females, but also for anybody. Like, your body is not going to look the same every single day, every month, every year. Each year, you may reinvent yourself personality-wise or what you're doing, but it's also your body is going to be completely different. You're not going to fit into the same pair of jeans that you're going to fit into even 2 months ago. Or when the holidays come around and you're around family, and it's just, life is constantly changing. It's learning how to be who you are in your life and accepting each stage and every moment, the highs, the lows, the body dysmorphia and the confidence, the ways of life, just accepting all of it, because that is who you are. And you can't change that. And you have to let go of that control. And so this video, this podcast, was so important for me because I never shared this with people outside of who I knew personally. And you never know how it's going to be taken. But this is all just coming directly from my heart, and this is my story and how I coped through things. And there were even moments where I tried going to therapy, but it wasn't my thing. Or I tried working out, but it ended up being a mental breakdown for me. Or I just wanted to learn how to be the best version of myself, both mentally and physically. And that was also another reason why I had gotten certified as a NASM personal trainer. It wasn't for the personal training side, but I wanted to learn about the body. I wanted to learn about every single muscle. I wanted to have the access and the knowledge of nutrition and just be able to use that to not only help myself, but help people around me. And I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm far from it. And I'm not saying I have everything under control, because I don't. Even today, I was not having it with my body or anything, and I still struggle with food sometimes. But when I say I feel the most myself when I'm around people that I love, it's because then I'm not focused on anything else. And I'm just focused on living my life. And that is so important. It's just to enjoy the small moments, enjoy the little moments that make you forget all of the tiny, minuscule insecurities that creep inside of your brain and that try to take you down and try to tear you down negatively. And it's taking back your own narrative, and that's what I'm doing. I want to take back who I am, take control of my life, and not have anything else take control of me. And in this moment, even if I don't feel the best, or I don't feel the greatest, I'm accepting that, and I'm learning how to not dwell on it, because I know if I start to dwell on it, the yo-yo starts to go back, and I get in a really bad mental state, and that's not what we're doing in 2023. But to anyone who has ever struggled with an eating disorder, I want you to know that I know what it's like. Among so many people know what it's like to go through something like that and know that it never goes away. It never fully goes away. It's always going to be a part of you, and you're always constantly going to deal with it every single day. And I know that so many people go through it because, crazy enough, when I was going through that, on my TikTok feed, it was all recovery videos. And that helped me, looking at somebody who was going through something that I was going through. And it made me feel less alone. And I hope if you're listening to this and you're going through it, just know that I'm here for you. And it's okay. And it's not the end of the world. You will be able to find who you are. And just to take it day by day. Don't look at the past. Don't look at the future. Look at the now. And just be present and embrace every hiccup, every obstacle, every success, small or big. And in a few years from now, you'll look back and be like, yeah, I went through that, and I'm so much stronger now because of it. And I'm very grateful to have been able to share a bit of my story. Again, I didn't really plan exactly what I was going to say, and I'm sure I missed so much, but this is just opening an opportunity for me to speak upon it more. And if you guys have any questions or anything, comment down below or talk to me on Instagram or TikTok or anything, and let's just start a conversation. I think it's so important to not have this be a taboo fact. It's something that so many people, but more of especially teenagers growing up in social media, viewing people and their bodies every day, comparing ourselves. I compare myself way too much, even to my own family. And the comparison aspect of it is so detrimental to ourselves. And it's so important to open up a conversation, to let people know that they are beautiful, inside and out, no matter what they look like. And just to know it's okay. And I hope that this was able to resonate with people, and that my story is able to get out there, and that I'm able to hear other people's story with how they have gone through something or have struggled with something that hurt them in the long run, but they're able to take the narrative back. Because I know for me, going through this eating disorder opened me up and exposed me to depression. It stemmed my anxiety, my body dysmorphia, and took me a while to find myself. And I really didn't think I truly found who I was again until late last year. And that's something because I went through this in 2019 and we're in 2023. And it takes time. So be patient, give yourself grace, and love every stage that you go through, because you will look back and you'll be proud of how far you've come. And I still have a long way to go. But this just opened me up to another world, another side, and another conversation. I'm very grateful for this podcast. I'm very grateful for everyone listening. I'm very grateful for the love and support that I've received from people that I don't know, people that I do know. And I'm happy with who I've been able to surround myself with. And I'm happy about the people who helped me find who I was and who I am today. So thank you. I'm going to keep being me, as everyone should just keep being them. And together, we'll just be we. That might have been the cheesiest ending ever, but thank you for listening to all 8 episodes, or any of these episodes for that fact. If you or anybody that you know is struggling with any sort of mental health issue, eating disorders, or anything, please look in the description, as I'll have some links that you can click on. And don't be afraid to be vulnerable, open up to people, even if it's just your closest friend, your cat, your dog, your grandma, the sky, anybody. It never hurts to talk about it. I love you guys so much, and I hope to see you sometime soon.